let's just break down what you just said there, because I think you're onto a very good point here, and I think we should look at it. You just described a scenario where if I were a young, bright individual in any country, anywhere, and I had the opportunity, because I was an entrepreneur and I wanted to exploit my ideas and I wanted to build a business and I wanted to be an innovator. Would I want to go to a geography that you just described, or would I like to immigrate to America, where for over 250 years it's proven that if I'm good enough and my ideas are validated and they do solve a problem, I can build a business and create freedom for my family. So I started that basis as being what makes any country competitive. Can you create an environment, even with all the faults that anyone has? Like, there is not a chance in hell I would want to go live my life in China. Not when I could starve or a supreme leader could re-educate me. I love that word you brought up. I don't want any of that. Why would I want that? And so in the pursuit of intellectual capital that creates all the innovation globally, who's going to win on this one? And I think the constant signal between these two economies is just that. The human being who wants to live in freedom, who would rather go to a place with all of its faults. I mean, there's a reason people risk their lives to cross rivers under barbed wire to get into America. You don't see that happening in China. I don't see anybody trying to get into China. And that's why. And so I'm going to bet my capital on that. And I think the rest of the world is betting their capital on that. And it's sort of, then you can get into the mishmash of, who's the president and all the rest of that. But I'm confident that my assumption is correct about the pursuit of freedom being the reason that economies are successful. And I think you can steal all the stuff you want, but if people don't want to move there, you have to rely on your own internal policy, which can be brutal. And ultimately, you'll never be the winner. You'll always be number two. And maybe that's okay for Xi. Maybe he can live as number two in perpetuity, because I'm pretty sure he'll die one day. I mean, I don't think he's a vampire. And so if they really want to compete and they want to win long term, the only successful philosophy, period, is democracy. Period. Period. That's it. Or a form of democracy that is so trusted, such as benevolent, or trusted leadership, like the UAE, which is not a democracy, but has proven for at least this last 50 years that they understand what democracy is and they rule that way. That's the only way it's going to work. You see a lot of people trying to get into the UAE and getting a passport there. They want that. They like the system, the policy there. But that's a very democratic, informed country. So, and I'd argue that they are the petri dish. That country is only 52, 53 years old. They could have chosen the Chinese way. They could have chosen the Russian way. They could have chosen Venezuela or Cuba or North Korean way. They didn't. They took the best of culture around the world, the best of policy, and they created a behemoth economy that's competing now. And the metric I use is China's number two in AI spending. The US is number one. Who's number three? UAE. How'd they do that? And so it's sort of that, I teach this stuff. I'm an executive fellow at Harvard. So I have classes with people explaining to them what I believe works, trying to convince them to think that through, and trying to convince at least a third of the class not to become consultants, because that's what they just make consultants at these business schools. And those people live a life of mediocrity. It's a shame to see it happen. But that's a long answer. So I'm not as worried as you are, because I think long term you can't beat what America has proven works.
I agree with you on that. However, where is your confidence level that America, the voting public, is going to maintain their belief in that freedom. When I look at a Mamdani, or I look at look at Minnesota and the types of candidates that are running for governor, running for mayors of local cities, there is a real populist push to the left for policies, whether you call them blatantly socialist policies or you call them social democracy, for reasons that I can outline in detail. I believe that American youth is losing their enthusiasm for capitalism, full stop.
Yes, I've heard that, and I think it's a valid concern, and it's a fair point to bring up. And you definitely have evidence in New York City and other states, as you've detailed, 100%. But I've also heard that same claim back in the 50s. I go back and I look at history. There was a time when communism was rising up, and it was occurring in places like New York City. There was a very bohemian vibe to it, and people claimed that it was a better way of life. And young people swarmed to. Some of them were called beatniks that far back. We had this movie. I've seen this movie before, and so
what knocks it back, though?
Well, I'll tell you what happens. Reality strikes. It's sort of like what you hear happening right now in New York, because that's a good case study. This Mamdani thing that's going on. If you listen to his rhetoric, it's basically money for nothing and chicks for free. And I totally get it. And it's a great message if you want to be elected as mayor. His problem is going to be delivering on that. New York is already the highest tax jurisdiction in America. And it's obviously not that well run already. And so it's what happens for these kinds of cycles. And my argument to you is going to be very simple. The American democracy, the way it was built, it has the ability to self-correct, and does. It self-corrects in 4 to 8 year cycles, and it has since it was formed. And you just saw it happen in the general election. The country was moving too far to policies that didn't make sense to the kitchen table in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And so, boom, it self-corrected. And it self-corrects at the municipal level, at the mayoral level, at the state level, and it'll do it again. Because when you offer money for nothing and chicks for free, you can't deliver. The system doesn't provide for that. And so it's a classic case of you won't get fooled again, because these young people that are voting for him are going to want the free food, the free, grocery stores, the free subways, and there's not a chance in hell he can deliver that. And so they will be pretty unhappy with him in the next cycle. Now, I'm not sure he's going to win. There's a fair amount of people willing to start to examine his policies. But my whole point, and I don't want to get too far, is that yes, people have gone into this. Young people today want communism. Young people today want socialism. Not actually. The majority of them want a job. They want to raise a family. They want to be able to support it. And about a third of them have that burning desire of the American entrepreneur that wants to create something magical for themselves, not the greed of money, the pursuit of freedom, which has driven this economy. And I live that every day. And I can guarantee you every year, and I'm the investor in them, I see a new crop of them. We're very healthy there. We're in great shape. So within my own family, we have these debates. I've got young kids too. And believe me, Thanksgiving dinner is full of this rhetoric. But I look every year at how they too have advanced. The minute they got a paycheck and saw tax, they went from being screaming liberals to raging conservatives. And that's kind of what happens. I watched it happen in my own family. It just happens. People want to know, where did half my paycheck go? Who did I just give that to? As soon as you get a job, you move from being that socialist to that conservative. That's how America works.